What is going on, everybody? Today we are going to start off the year 2025. Happy New Year's, by the way, with a comparison of two of my favorite running shoes in my collection, I would say. So we are comparing the ASICS Novablast 5, which is my most recent review, or the shoe I tested the most recently, versus the ASICS Novablast 4, which is a tried and true daily trainer that I believe a lot of people like. So let's get right into it, starting out with the outsole on both of these shoes. So for simplicity's sake, I would just say that the Novablast 5's outsole performed a little bit better. I think that the compound that they used on the rubber outsole was just a little bit stickier in the conditions that I was running in, which were mostly dry weather conditions on the road or asphalt, versus the Novablast 4's outsole. I would say that honestly they look pretty similar when it comes to outsole pattern, but when it comes to the hardness of the outsole itself or the compound of rubber used, I would just say that I prefer the Novablast 5's outsole a little bit more. I just felt that it was a little bit stickier when I was planting and running and changing directions a little bit to the side. Now, with that being said, the Novablast 5 is not, I would say, super above average when it comes to outsole traction, because I think that, Adidas Continental Rubber and Puma Grip, I'm like a broken record saying that, is just way better than both of these options. But if you're choosing between these two options, I think that the outsole has a little bit better traction on the Novablast 5. Now, when it comes to durability of both of these outsoles, kind of hard to tell. I have 45 miles in the Novablast 5 and I have about 80-ish miles in the Novablast 4. I actually just ran 7 miles like 20 minutes ago in these just to remember the feel of these. And the Novablast 4's outsole is just not holding up as good as I would like it to. I think that the outsole rubber is a little bit on the softer side, plus I am a heavier runner, and it just looks a little bit worn down in the forefoot. Not exactly sure if you guys will be able to tell, but there's some fraying because there's some exposed midsole on the outsole. And the Novablast 5's, I would say, is not much better. I think it is a little bit better when it comes to durability, but I wouldn't say it's like miles ahead of the Novablast 4 in terms of outsole durability. But I have 45 miles in the Novablast 5, like I said, but the forefoot is also starting to wear down quite a bit. And for under 50 miles, it's just a little bit concerning that my outsoles are kind of looking like that, especially in the forefoot. In the heels, both of these shoes are perfectly fine, but forefoot, where a lot of pressure goes into while you're running, that's going to be a high wear area, at least for me. So outsole durability on both of these shoes, I would say, is average to maybe a little bit below average. And if I had to choose a winner, I don't know. I just don't think both of these are that good. So I'm not going to choose a winner for outsole durability. Now, moving on to the cushion setup of both of these shoes. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. So ASICS used the FF Blast Plus Eco midsole on the Novablast 4, and ASICS updated the Novablast 5 to use an FF Blast Max midsole on the Novablast 5, and I would say that they are very different setups. Now, both of these actually have technically the same stack height, but they perform very different in my experience. So as for, I guess, a little bit of context, I am 200, kind of like 205, 210 right now because of the holidays, but I am a heavier runner, and I would say that I prefer typically a firmer shoe, especially for daily training, just because I feel like it's a little bit more supportive, it's a little bit more stable, and I feel like I can pick up the pace a little bit faster. And I would say that for cushion-wise, both of these shoes are fantastic, but it really depends what you prefer in a running shoe. If you want a little bit more of a softer feel and you're going to be using the shoe for a majority of slower runs with, maybe some marathon paces or half marathon paces, I would say that the Novablast 5 is going to be a more comfortable option for you, because that FF Blast Max is a little bit more forgiving, a little bit softer, but in turn is a little bit slower than the Novablast 4. The Novablast 4's FF Blast Plus Eco midsole is a little bit firmer. It doesn't give you that pop, or it doesn't give you that sinking feeling that maybe the Novablast 5 is going to give you, but it is going to be a little bit firmer and a little bit peppier in my opinion. I feel like I can run a lot faster in this shoe than I can in the Novablast 5, just because in the Novablast 5, as I said in the review, I felt like it was a little bit squishy, and it's really comfortable for slower runs, but when you are trying to run, maybe a PR in the mile or 5K or 10K pace, I just feel like it's not the best shoe for that. It just feels like there's maybe a little bit too much under your foot. Versus the Novablast 4, I was running in it today, and honestly, it felt more of like an extension of my foot. So maybe not the best for longer runs, the Novablast 4. I would prefer to run a longer run in the Novablast 5, especially if I'm going a little bit slower. But if you're running maybe under 10 miles in the Novablast 4, I think that you're going to be good to go. It is a little bit peppier and it's a little bit more quote unquote fun to run in. Not from the sense of getting like a trampoline effect like I think ASICS claims, but it's just going to feel a little bit lower to the ground and you're going to feel a little bit faster in the shoe. But it is a pretty firm setup, I do want to warn you guys. So that pretty much wraps up the midsole comparison for the Novablast 4 and the Novablast 5. Now if you ask me to choose a winner, I would say that I actually prefer the Novablast 4's midsole than the Novablast 5's midsole. Even though technically they did upgrade the foam and this is a very comfortable midsole, I just prefer the feel of like that firmer and faster feel of the Novablast 4. That's maybe a personal preference, but then again, the Novablast 5's midsole is perfectly fine. It's just better for a different purpose where, you know, maybe longer runs or slower runs, I do think that this midsole is more comfortable than the 4's. But if you don't like feeling super sluggish, the 4 is also going to be a better option for you. So that's my personal opinion and personal preference. I prefer the 4's midsole over the 5's. And last but not least, we are going to be talking about the uppers in both of these shoes. Now, I don't know technically what ASICS calls both of these uppers, but the 4's to me feel like kind of like a knitted material. It's a little bit thicker. Not very good ventilation. I'll start off right out the bat with that on the 4's. And the Novablast 5's feels more like a plasticky mesh or maybe just a regular mesh, but gives some plasticky vibes, you know? And both of these actually have a pretty cushioned heel cup or heel counter with gusseted, I think both of them are gusseted, both gusseted tongues. So they are pretty similar in fit and feel. The Novablast 5, I went true to size 12, and it fit me perfectly fine. I actually did think that the Novablast 5 fit better than the 4's. The 4's I actually went down half a size because my true size 12, just felt a little bit long for me. I have a wider than average foot, but with a size 11.5 in the Novablast 4 and a size 12 in the Novablast 5, that worked perfectly for me. But then again, my foot is shaped differently than everyone else's, so make sure you go try them on in store if you can. So the fit, I would say Novablast 5 wins for sure. But for materials or material preferences, I prefer the 4's. The 4's kind of, when I broke them in, they just kind of felt more of like an extension of my foot. And the 4's overall just felt a little bit lighter than the 5's. But with that being said, the 5's lockdown, the heel lockdown was just superior. I think the fit in general just gave me less issues with no break-in time versus the 4's I think took a little bit of time for me to break them in. The 4's I also still have a little bit of right heel slippage, but it's not so bad to the point where I can't run in the shoe. It's just very minor heel slippage on the right pair or the right shoe. So it's not a super big deal, but the 5's I think fit my foot a little bit better. Both of them, the ventilation is just okay. The 4's are pretty bad, honestly. And the 5's are, I would say, like a tiny, tiny step up from the 4's when it comes to ventilation. So fit overall, I would prefer the Novablast 5, but when it comes to materials and how they feel on your foot, I do prefer the Novablast 4 after it's broken in. So if I had to choose a winner for the upper and fit, it's kind of hard to say because these won on the fit and these won on the materials. But I'm going to have to give the slight edge to the 4 just because I just like the materials a little bit better, and the fit, I can kind of look past it because the only problem I really had with the fit on the Novablast 4 was that sizing issue, and I did go half size down, so that kind of helped it. And then once I broke in the shoe, all the fit issues kind of went away for me personally. So I would have to give the slight edge to the 4, but the 5's is really, really good as well. So overall, let's talk a little bit more about the price point of both of these. I believe you can get the Novablast 4 on sale right now. I think ASICS website or different running shoe websites, you can get them for around $100 to $120, which I think is a phenomenal deal, especially if you have the preferences like I stated in this comparison for the Novablast 4. The Novablast 5 retails for $140, which was the full price of the 4's as well. And I think that kind of the winner is up to you. Obviously, that's every shoe review and that's based on your personal running preferences. But I think that the Novablast 5, I would recommend it to you if you are typically running, you know, slower miles, or you just want an easy day trainer. You want to stack up the miles on a shoe and you want pretty much a pretty well-rounded shoe as well. Like I said, you can run fast in this shoe, but maybe it's going to be a little reluctant to go faster with you, but it's going to be very comfortable for long runs or slower paced runs. Whereas the Novablast 4, maybe it's not the best shoe if you're looking to do super long runs and, you know, maybe you're the same weight as me or around the same weight, where, you know, the impact protection might not be as good as the fives, but you are going to feel pretty peppy in this shoe. And honestly, if you're running under 10 miles or under a half marathon, I would say that the Novablast 4's midsole is good enough, and it's going to be, for me, a little bit more fun to run in just because you feel a little bit faster. And I think that the 4's lightness, I don't exactly know the weights of each shoe, and also this one is half a size smaller than this one, but I would say that the Novablast 4's overall feel is lighter than the 5's. So that's, I guess, another personal preference thing if you even care about weight. The 4's just kind of, when they broke in, felt like an extension of my foot, and it just felt really comfortable to run in. And like I said, if you're keeping it under a half marathon when you're training in these, you're gonna pretty much enjoy them, especially now that these are on sale for $110 to $120. So I think the overall winner for me, as you can probably tell, is the 4's, but the 5's are no slouch as well. And like I said in the overall conclusion, it really depends on your preferences and what you desire in a running shoe. So both of them, I don't think you can go wrong. Even priced at full price for both of these, $140. I think it's an incredible value. There's a reason why the Novablast line is super popular with ASICS, and it kind of blew up because they are that good. So that's going to pretty much wrap up the comparison. Thank you guys so much for watching, and stay tuned for future videos like this or related to this, or I guess not related to this. And that's going to pretty much wrap it up. Happy New Year, everyone, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace.